Not fear, but full-blown anticipation at this hour in Austin, Texas, where we are, as we said, just under 2 hours away from the kickoff of the EV Giants Cyber Rodeo. We're getting the first look inside at this hour. Tesla founder and CEO Elon Musk tweeting out these images ahead of the grand opening of Tesla's Giga factory. This is a $1.1 billion, 5 million square foot facility already churning out Model Ys. But the chatter is that CEO Elon Musk could use the party to announce the start date for production of the much-anticipated Cybertruck. So Teslarati, which is one of these fanboy sites for Teslas, has video of Cybertruck sightings at the Austin factory. First it was one, and now apparently we've got a couple of them. One man can take much of the credit for Texas landing both the plant and convincing Musk to move Tesla's headquarters from California to the Lone Star State, and that would be Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who joins us live from Austin. Governor, thank you for being here. Hey, rumor has it that you might take the stage and speak tonight at the Cyber Rodeo?
We'll see, Liz. After we talk right now, I have to head out of town. I'll be racing back to Austin to try to make it before the party is over. I don't know if I will, but leave it up to Elon to have the first ever Cyber Rodeo. Have you seen that big boot out in front of Tesla? This is typical way that Elon does things, and that is big.
Oh, I know. But overall, you know, this story, Governor, checks so many boxes. Business, manufacturing, job creation, new technology. What does it truly mean to Texas?
Well, listen, this adds to what we've been working on for years now, and it makes Texas the home of innovation. But I want to give you an explanation of why this happened. It was 2 years ago this month that Elon and I began talking about all this project, and they kind of finalized what they wanted to do in around June of less than 2 years ago. And a need that Elon had was speed. He does everything fast, and this would have taken 5, maybe 10 years to accomplish in California. I told him that Texas moves at the speed of business. He was able to complete a mile-long gigafactory in a year and a half. That is unheard of. Amazing. Probably not replicable in any other state. We accelerate the permitting process so that projects like this can break ground, can be finished faster than any other state in the United States.
And the jobs, because, you know, he's going to start off hiring about 5,000 people. He claims that it'll jump to about 10,000. I find what's interesting, Travis County, where Austin, of course, is, $14 million tax rebate they gave to Tesla. However, it came with strings attached, and I think this is really important. The county, in turn, yes, it'll net about $9 million in revenue, but Tesla was required to spend 10% of the rebates into community programs. And already, as I understand it, you have Austin Community College working with Tesla to have classes and train these workers so they come right out from college straight to the floor of Tesla. Talk to me about the importance of something like that, where you now have an important infrastructure.
Well, it's enormous, and it's part of the brilliance, again, of Elon, because when he comes here bold, but he understands the full playing field, and he knows that he needs a good quality workforce, and he's willing to invest in the development of that good quality workforce, and that is exactly what he's going to be getting. And in fact, if you recall, the first thing that he announced locating to Texas was the Gigafactory. He became so happy with the way things were going in Texas. It was after that he announced the moving of the headquarters of Tesla to the same location. And you know about the expansion of SpaceX as well as the Boring Company, et cetera. The state of Texas is the kind of state that Elon likes to do business in.
I do find it interesting, though. You've got this magnificent state-of-the-art electric vehicle plant in oil drilling country. Not to mention that, you know, people love their gas-powered pickup trucks in Texas. Give me the message that you send here, because when Texas won the plant, you tweeted out, this will be the cornerstone for the next generation innovation. This seems to me that both sides can get along here.
Well, we can. First, there's so many different components of innovation, whether it be in the medical arena, whether it be in the finance arena, whether it be in the EV arena. Across the board, Texas is leading the way with regard to innovation. But I got to share with you and your audience something that a lot of people don't know. Many people may know that Texas leads the nation and is an international leader in both the production of oil and gas, but in addition to that, Texas leads the nation in the production of renewables. And so Texas truly is the energy capital of the United States and one of the energy capitals of the entire world, with an all of the above approach to the providing of all sources of energy.
I can't let you go, Governor, without asking you about the plan that you signed. You signed this policy directive yesterday, in essence saying that you'll send about 900 buses filled with undocumented workers to the steps of the Capitol. When is this starting to happen, and what is the major message here?
So we're beginning on working on putting the buses together and putting the people together today. The busing may begin in the next couple of days. But the message is very simply this, and that is during this entire episode where more than 2 million people have come across the border illegally under the Biden administration has not cared enough to come down to the border itself. And so if Biden will not come to the border, we're going to take the border to Biden. And the people in Washington, D.C., whether it be the Biden administration or the members of Congress, they're going to have to deal firsthand with the catastrophic consequences that the Biden administration has imposed on Texas and the people of Texas. We're the ones left with grappling to have to respond to this more than 1 million people who've come across the Texas border alone, in addition to what's going to happen in the aftermath of repealing Title 42, which may lead to as many as 6 million people coming across the border in 1 year. We want to make sure the Biden administration has to grapple with the consequences just like Texas has had to grapple with it.
Governor Greg Abbott, I hope you make it to that stage. Give us the inside scoop if you do, because you know we don't have any of the media that are really invited. We have experts who are circling the plant right now. They're going to join us in just a couple of minutes, but good luck and thank you so much.
Thank you.